Welcome to the regular meeting of the El Centro City Council for Tuesday, January 18th. First, we'll have roll call.
Mayor Silva,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanders, Councilmember Edney, Councilmember Walker,
Here.
Councilmember Solomon.
Here.
Thank you very much. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance now and the invocation. I'm very happy to introduce to you the Boy Scouts of America who will be leading us with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then Jake Rose will lead us with the invocation. So, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Now we'll have a report from the city attorney on closed session items that were discussed.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the board did hear the anticipated litigation item, and there's no action to report. The board did hear a report regarding the property acquisition at 1196 West Main Street. Direction to staff was given, and the item will come back in public session at another time. The board also did meet with regard to labor negotiations with the contract department heads, and no action to report, and direction was given to staff with regard to those contracts. There was a pending litigation item added to the closed session regarding the claim of Gutierrez, who's deceased, and that was motioned by Edney, second by Sanders, and it passed on a 5-0 vote, and information regarding that claim was provided to the council. No action to report. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. We're going to begin the meeting with some recognition of some local businesses that have opened up their wallets in contribution for a number of city events. And in the city of El Centro, I'm amazed by the number of events that we do to celebrate our culture, to celebrate and provide opportunities to our citizens for enjoyment. And you know, we could not do it without the contribution of the people that we're going to be recognizing today. And so we're going to be awarding a certificate of appreciation for your generosity. And also, we hope that we continue to do this because we're going to need you more and more. We want to provide and increase the quality of life of our citizens, and we do that by doing these kinds of events. And thank you on behalf of the council. Thank you for what you do, and again, your generosity. So if I can ask the council members to please join me down by the steps, and I'll call the names. They'll come up, we'll give them a certificate of appreciation, we'll take a picture, and then at the end, Grace, I think you want to do a group picture, so everybody okay with that? Okay, so let's please join me foot of the stairs. Someone that is not able to join us today.
want this seat?
recognize
Oh, you good there? Okay.
contribution of $25,000 for city events is AT&T Yellow Pages. Get $25,000 big contribution. We want to recognize the Imperial Valley Press and Sarah Douglas. Is Sarah here? Here. Also for your contribution of $5,000 for city events. So thank you, Sarah. Hazard Construction, also contribution of $5,000. Doug Urbick and Chad Hooper, if I pronounced those names correctly. Home Depot, $5,000. Mark McCain.
Promise.
Come on, Grace, don't be shy.
Sunbelt Rentals, David Gomez.
Friday every day?
That'd be easier.
Thank you all. Comments from council? Any comments? No? Okay, thank you very much. I forgot to make the statement as it relates to the public meeting. This is a public meeting. If there's an item on the agenda in which you wish to be heard, please complete a speaker slip and submit it to the city clerk prior to the start of the meeting. When the item is announced and your name is called by the mayor, please come forward to the microphone and address yourself to the council, stating your name and address for the record. Unless the mayor extends the time, there is a 3-minute time limit for each public presentation. If you wish to address the council on any subject matter within the council's jurisdiction that is not listed on the agenda, you may do so during the public comment portion of the agenda. I do have some requests for people to speak, but they relate to specific council items, I believe, so we'll...
There's just one, there's a public comment.
Oh, by Charlotte, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks. Now we have our monthly report by Mr. Curtis, President of the Downtown El Centro Business Improvement District. Mr. Curtis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It'll be short and sweet, you guys. Done a lot already tonight, so it's going to be quick. We just wanted to bring you up to speed on what happened. We had an annual membership meeting on December the 7th, 2010, at the 60s Deli downtown. Meeting was, of course, it was properly notified. We sent out everything by mail. Tried to get everybody there that we could. As usual, we had a low turnout, but that's all right because we got a lot of information out to the folks anyway, of the downtown. The next farmers market is scheduled for January 21st this year, of course. Fees for space to showcase goods and services for all 180 businesses downtown, independent contractors. All that's been waived for all the people downtown. If they want to put a booth out there, they do it for free, of course. And so, not so with the folks who come in from outside the city. We will extract a little bit for a fee for them. The bid goals and responsibility to its membership review is near completion. A potential flow in the fee assessments was assessed this morning because it's one of the areas we wanted to get back to you on. By the entire board, board that was there. We only had one member that wasn't there. Recommendations will be forthcoming in a full board meeting, and then we'll present them to you. I don't know whether we do that or
I think I would prefer that they're shared first with with Ms. Walker and myself, and then we
Okay?
can bring those to
So
the council.
we will be, y'all are invited to come down next week at Tuesday morning at 7:30. Or we have until, we got an extension because there were some items in there that we hadn't addressed properly. And so we were granted an extension by the RDA so that we could get everything in line and not make it so long. It was 10 pages long, so we're condensing that, I know, see? So we're condensing it down to just the bullet points. And we had a very good discussion with Marcella and with Deborah. And so we know now what we want to do and how we want to present it, and we're working on that, and we should have it ready to go by next week if you all can come down.
I think what would be helpful is if you could provide it to Mr. Silva and myself in advance of the
Sure,
meeting.
sure.
So we have an opportunity to review
Absolutely.
it, and then we'll be available to
Okay.
discuss it.
And then, well, between now and next Tuesday morning, so that you can come down, is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
Does that work for you?
This coming Tuesday?
Yes, sir? A week from today? 7:30 in the morning, Mr. Silva.
Let me check before I come in.
All of you are invited. I mean, everybody's invited to come down to the meeting, but, you know, we will provide you with the bullet points ahead of time, so.
No, I've got a 7 o'clock meeting next Tuesday.
All right,
Let me-
so you have a 7 o'clock meeting on Tuesday morning? Well, we can have it at 6 if you want.
No, thank you.
No, see, if we wait, I don't have a calendar in front of me, so I don't know what other Tuesday comes up before we come before you again in February.
The following Tuesday, the day of the council meeting, I must say.
Marcella, is that, where's Marcella? Marcella, is that okay? The following Tuesday, not next Tuesday, but the following Tuesday for us to go with the council?
Or perhaps if you can write it and submit it, maybe that they can submit it to you in writing, and then if there's any follow-up questions, we would maybe get back to them.
We will do that. We'd be glad to submit it to you in writing, but if there's follow-up questions, or it would be better if we could sit down with it. We don't necessarily have to do it on, you let us know when you're available, and we'll try to make it
I
happen.
think we,
I think it would be a good idea to have a discussion before the council meeting so we can address.
could we
I-
meet, so could the subcommittee meet on the 1st with the bid board, and then we bring it back to council then on the 15th?
Okay? So,
Marcella, can we do
is
that?
that all right?
February the 15th?
It would be to council, the full council on the 15th. Mr. Silva and I would meet with the bid board on the 1st.
How is that scheduled?
Well, if they meet on the 1st, I mean, they're going to bring it until the 15th, which is the second meeting of the month. So there's plenty of time.
Okay.
We'll make it happen then, okay? Then we leave it at 7:30. Is that a Tuesday morning, by the way? Okay,
Yes.
very well. All right, the annual budget review of Mr. Yee from CPA George Wu's office will cost nearly, we just found this out, 10% of our annual budget. So we're looking at, and one of the things we're going to ask the council and through the RDA is the possibility of having to only have that review every 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years. Every year, it's going to cost us 10%. Doesn't cost any more if we wait 2 years. Doesn't cost any more if we wait 3 years. But the annual thing, it's going to be a bylaws change if we have to do, if we can do it. So that's one of the things that we're going to be asking you, if that's possible to do that. Okay? That's what my next question was. What's the council members' consensus of the annual budget review annually or every 2 or 3 or 5 years? So, you know, it just kind of gives you something to think about. Because at 10% of our budget, we're looking at $3,500, bang like that. And if we do that every year, we're just taking the money away that we could be doing something constructive with it.
I think what would be helpful is perhaps for us to get an opinion from our Director of Finance and her staff as to what would be a best practice.
Okay?
And we'll
Include
wait for
that as part of the discussion.
Yeah. And we can toss that around a little bit when you all come down.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it. Are
Thank
there
you.
any questions? Any other questions?
I have a request.
Sure.
You may have read, Mr. Curtis, in the newspaper with regard to Governor Brown's proposal
Yes, ma'am.
for the upcoming budget
Mhm.
that contemplates the elimination of redevelopment agencies and enterprise zones. So we would request that you know how valuable each and every member of our redevelopment team is.
Believe
and
me,
how much
we know.
help they have provided. So I would ask the bid board to, at a minimum, write a letter to to the governor, write a letter to our
Oh, to the governor. I was gonna say, we gave awards to the RDA folks already, but,
You need to let your elected officials in Sacramento understand that these are real people on the ground helping every small business in this community. And they need to hear that from all of us.
okay, now, do you want 10 letters to go up, or one letter with our
One
signatures on
letter
it?
from the board would be outstanding.
We will do that.
Good idea.
Needs to-
We'll get that done, and we'll send you guys a copy, so that you know what happened. You're
That
welcome.
was a good idea.
Is
Thank
there
you.
anything else?
Any other questions from council?
I just have a question. Mr. Curtis, did you say a annual budget review, or are you saying an audit?
No, an audit.
An audit would be
Yeah.
10% of your, okay.
Yeah, and I think this one was so costly because we hadn't done it for a while. We were just getting by with a bookkeeping thing, and it was like half of that. But according to the bylaws, we can't do that. I mean, we need to do it the right way. So, the letter to the governor is a great idea, and we'll get that done.
Also to our legislators, Mr. Perez and Mr. Vargas.
Yes,
All right,
okay.
thank you very much.
Thank
Any
you,
other
Mr. Curtis.
questions?
Any other questions?
We are proud to announce, thank you, Mr. Edney, we are proud to announce that we are getting one of the buildings downtown pretty well ready for lessees to come in. I'm sure you all know about that already, and we're sorry to announce, if you already know about it, I'm sure that Kearney and Company is leaving the downtown. And they're just, as far as I know, they're closing the doors. So, you know, it's not a fair trade, but we're trying to do what we can to get other people in there. And we have people that are coming in and reworking the buildings, reconstructing the buildings so that we can maybe get them filled up and get them going. So we appreciate all the help, and I know that we get a lot of information from the RDA, who's very helpful in trying to not only reconstruct the downtown, but to help us fill up the empty spaces. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis.
The RDA, thank you guys very much. And we'll be in contact with you. We'll get the bullet points back to you, and then we'll go from there. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
very
Curtis.
much.
I'm going to ask for the indulgence of the council, and rather than making Charla wait until public comments towards the end of the meeting, Charla, you want to come now and do your comments?
Thank you. I will be brief, and I do apologize for my very casual attire. My other job, this weekend we had our 14th annual Dunes cleanup, and today I've been cleaning up from the cleanup. So that is the way that works. Just as a quick aside, we did have over 3,000 people out at the Dunes this Saturday. Cleaned up lots and lots of trash, working to keep those things clean and open, and the money coming into the valley for recreation. So, Imperial County Film Commission, I just want to give you a brief update on where we've been. Mr. Solomon has been a constant and good attendee at our board meetings, and things have been going really well. Since July 1st of this fiscal year, we have had 21 projects in Imperial County, and they are representing over $225,000 in estimated economic impact. Just last week, El Centro did have a commercial that was shot in the city limits at El Centro Regional Medical Center, and it was for an organ transplant bypass machine. And it was in conjunction with El Centro Regional Reach and Gold Cross. So that was a great project for the city. We do have 4 projects coming up in the next 2 weeks, so it's a busy one for the Film Commission right now. And we are having our first ever for the county film festival and artist showcase on April 9th. And we have flyers that are going out, and I'd be happy to leave some for you all if you'd like to look at it. We are taking entries right now for 6 different categories in film and 10 different categories in the art festival portion. And deadline for those submissions is March 9th, so that's why we're trying to get the word out and let everybody know. And all the information and applications are available on our website. And really, that was the major things I wanted to tell you, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Questions from council?
No, but I have a similar request, since the
Yeah.
Film Commission has also benefited,
Absolutely.
think,
I will be doing
somewhere
that.
between $5,000 and $15,000 a year
Yes,
from the RDA. Please send a letter.
I will get that going on Monday at my board meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. We have a request from staff to add an item to the agenda. The item is before you. and it relates to the special meeting that we had on Saturday and having to add the action items 2 and 3 specific to the cooperative agreement and the authorization of the city manager to sign the documents. Is there a motion from the council to add this item?
Second.
Mr. Mayor, there is a resolution to approve the cooperation agreement and authorize the city manager to execute it.
This
So,
is just to add the item, right?
yes, to add the item, but you would be acting on the resolution.
Okay, and the rest was, okay. Well, we had to do item number 1 also? There's 3 action items.
No, there's a separate resolution that was in the packet for the action that you took on Saturday, and then there's a separate resolution to approve the agreement.
Okay, right. So a motion by Walker, second by Solomon to add the item. Please ballot.
Motion carried, 5-0.
Okay, and we'll take that out after the consent agenda. We have items 3 through 13 on our consent agenda. Is there any request from council to pull any of those items?
Take a quick peek. I presented some corrections to the minutes, so
I will bring them
perhaps,
back next meeting.
Item 4 should be pulled for now. We'll act upon that at the next meeting. Did we have anyone wanting to speak to any of the consent items?
No.
I'd move to approve items 3, 5 through 13.
Okay, moved by Walker, second by Solomon. Please ballot.
Motion carried, 5-0.
Thank you. Under new business, item 14, we are going to, very excited to have this young man come up and share with us a project that he has in mind for Buckland Park and recognition of our veterans. Really excited to have this young man here. Very impressed with him. We'll begin with Christy first to give us some background, and then we'll call Joaquin Antonio Villegas to the podium, please.
Okay, Joaquin did come present to the Community Services Commission, and he presented his proposal, his project. I've also been in communication with Mr. Duran on this project. Unfortunately, we didn't have a quorum at the last Community Services Commission meeting, so they weren't able to actually take action and vote. But at the previous meeting where Joaquin did present, they were very supportive. I'm pretty confident it would have passed, so I did want to share that. Basically, with their recommendation, it's moving forward to you with your consideration. So I'll go ahead and have Joaquin come up and give you his presentation.
Okay, thank you. As I mentioned, my name is Joaquin Antonio Villegas Molina. I'm a freshman in Centro Union High School. I play the saxophone in the Great Spartan Band and the pianist in the Central Jazz Band. My project, what I'm presenting right now, is my Eagle Scout Leadership Service Project. What that is that's the last requirement to go from Life Scout, which I am right now, to the highest rank you can achieve as a Boy Scout, which is the Eagle Scout. They say once you are an you're an Eagle for life. So what I want to do is, before I reach my 18th birthday, which is the deadline for reaching the Eagle, is I want to reach the Eagle Scout and, as I said, be the Eagle for life. Okay. My project consists of the construction of a Veterans Memorial at Buckland Park, specifically along 8th Street between Yucca Drive and Tangerine Drive. Said memorial will be an eagle-shaped area covered with brick pavers and concrete sidewalks to integrate the memorial with jogging loop, as well as benches, 3-foot-high concrete or onyx pedestals with bronze military insignias of our armed forces, Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, and Coast Guard. Although we will try to obtain grants and help from any agency willing to participate, this project has been planned to be entirely financed on donations from private companies, members of our community, and fundraising activities as well. I've chosen to work on this project after a careful consideration of many options and knowing about the high cost of its construction. as a symbol of appreciation to the men and women from the United States who made the ultimate sacrifice for the good of free people everywhere. Men and women who have reminded me that freedom is not free. All right. My proposed project site is along 8th Street between Yucca Drive and Tangerine Drive. Here's a satellite view from it. Right here is 8th Street, and along here is Aurora Drive. And here between Tangerine Drive and Yucca Drive is my proposed project site right here. Right here, from an aerial view, it is supposed to have the jogging loop right here, and integrating into my project. Right here we have the boardwalk, and right here we have the brick paving with the 6 statues representing each military insignia. Right here where the flag is, we will have the flag poles for each armed force, and that is where we want to have our project. And from an aerial view, it's going to look like an eagle, like that, with the brick paving. My proposed project site is right here along 8th Street. Here we have a visual. Right here is the jogging loop. So another view right here. We chose this site because the landscape is plain and it's pretty open, so we won't have to modify the landscape in any way whatsoever. And as we build our project, you will find that we will have no interference from trees or the jogging loop, which will remain unaffected from my project. My previous proposed project site was at Ross Avenue and at the 8th Street intersection. We found it appropriate due to the existing utilities that we found there. For example, here were some electrical boxes that we couldn't afford touching or modifying in any way. And here we already have the existing parking lot, which will also limit the amount of room I could use to build my project. For you see here are the electrical boxes. And right here we also have some underground utilities right next to the parking lot, which we could also not afford to mess with. Here we have the sanitary sewer manhole and the storm drain catch basin. So this would also affect the area on which I could work in, and I could not afford to modify in any way. The existing City of Blythe Veterans Memorial we are using for reference only. So the City of Blythe's Memorial is a basic idea and concept of what we want to do. We want the sidewalk to integrate into my project. Here we have the pedestals with each military insignia. Here we have some benches that we could use to sit down. And right here is the sixth armed force, which is called the POW MIA, which is the Prisoners of War Missing in Action, as we see here as a close-up. To the men and women of the armed force past, present, and future, your community appreciates your service and sacrifice. So this is the last pedestal completing the 6 that we want to do. Here we will put benches, although they would be slightly different than this one itself. And here is a close-up of the 6 pedestals that we want to add. Behind it there is a fountain, which we decided not to add due to the amount of upkeep that we have to do on it. Here's a side view of the pedestals. There will be 6 of them. The bronze military insignia will hold the military insignia from each of the 5 armed forces, and the 6th one being the POW MIA. Each military insignia will be about 1 foot in diameter, and it will be about 3 feet in height. And under each one, they will have a light that will be that will illuminate the military insignias in the dark or at night when people choose to walk by. We were deciding to have them solar panels, but that would decide on how much money we have raised in the end. And up here, we have a stone bronze plaque recognition boulder, which the City of Blythe used to recognize the major contributors to the project, and we thought that was a good idea, so we might also decide to include that into my project. Here's the brick paving for the eagle-shaped area, as you saw in the picture previously. Here, this is the brick paving that we will add to show the eagle from an aerial view. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Joaquin, very much. It's really a wonderful proposal, and I'm sure the council has questions or comments about this, so, council?
If you'll excuse me one second, it might be appropriate to hear from staff. Is there any legal issues allowing this project as far as, how's it going to work? Did they raise the money? Who's going to do the work? Do we have an estimated budget?
Well, I've not been a participant with regard to staff on those issues, but there are certainly liability issues during the course of construction, and then afterwards it would be the city's ultimate responsibility with regard to any potential liability for trip and falls and that sort of thing.
And maintaining it, I suppose. Correct. Do you have something to add, Ms. Rachel?
Basically, just that his troop is they are completely funding the project, and we will, of course, help with maintenance on a regular basis.
Yes. And for the council, and this is an outcome of being a charter city, we don't have any of the other issues under general law that we would have had before with volunteer labor and the companies that may be coming out there to work on this. So we see this very good. We're really treating this, it's Eagle Scout project, but we're treating it as a city project. So you may, for example, see the grub work may be done by our prison crews or our parks crews. So this is a city project that is being done, but they're doing the fundraising for all the materials and other work that's going to be done on site. So we may have a participation in that, but Ms. Reister's department is in charge of what happens out there and necessary reviews and inspections and so forth that are required.
Okay. Do you have an estimated budget, sir?
Yes. Our estimated budget is about $70,000.
$70,000. Do you, what is your anticipation as far as timeline? I know you said you have to do it before you're 18. I assume that's in 3 years?
Yes, sir.
3 years. So the construction period is how long?
Well, at first we decided to do it before May 30th, but as we started expanding, we found that this would not be, we will not finish it in that time, so we are planning to do it before the new year starts, which is 2012.
Plan to start or plan to complete?
Planning to complete
Complete?
Before the end of this year?
before the end of this year.
Okay.
Well, I've sat up for this, I think, beginning of my 8th year in the council, and I'm not sure I've ever seen a more impressive presentation to this council. I applaud you for your thoughts and your efforts. I really do think it's a great way. We've been talking about budget issues from both a local area and a state issue, and these are the types of projects that I think, unfortunately, cities are not going to be able to fund in the future, based on where we're going, both on a local level and a state level. I'm ecstatic that you would come forward with a project like this. I endorse it wholeheartedly. In fact, I'm willing to make a contribution to your project for my company, and I'll commit $1,000 to your project.
All right.
I happen to be involved with a bank. I'll go and get another 1,000 from them. How's that?
All right. All 2,000 there.
I'm sure my big sister here in the much bigger bank will do a much better job of that.
You are to be commended. Congratulations for such an ambitious and phenomenal project. I wish you much success. I would hope to get some input from staff. My concerns are graffiti, theft of the plaques. Mr. Banks can attest to the fact that we had a plaque stolen off of the library building, the front of the library, that we think was taken by recyclers. And this looks like an area that skateboarders could be of some concern. Have we built in some precautions and things that we can do to anticipate bad behaviors by others?
I can give you
Lighting is
what I've
important.
called around on this kind of a project, and like Blight that you saw, for whatever reason, they're leaving it alone. Skateboarders leave it alone. Clexco has not had a problem with theirs. Brawley has not had a problem with theirs. I guess it's one of those where if we built everything based upon bad acts, we wouldn't build anything. In this case, I think we're seeing, at least in other communities, people are respecting the property. And I have to believe that our citizens are as good. And that's, quite frankly, it's a leap of faith.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Solomon?
Yes. You know, these are some trying times, and it really is nice when we find people that are young people that are willing to make a sacrifice like this and take charge. You know, it's the volunteers that we don't hear too often about, and when we do find one, as yourself, volunteering to do this project, it is extremely pleasing to me. I also wanted to mention to you, I teach a speech class at the college, and I cannot believe how relaxed you were when you were just talking a moment ago. You talk like a pro, you know. I wish I would have had you in my class so I could tell everybody he learned all of that from me, but that's not the case. But you did an excellent job of presenting this. You really have a way of coming across, and I hope that you continue to keep that and polish your speaking even more so, then it will carry you a long ways. But you really did an excellent job there. And if John is going to give something, I might as well throw my hat in there too. I don't have a business, but I do want to make sure that I do something to help you out. So
You need to know who to write the checks out to.
yes.
You can send it to the Boy Scouts of America. Troop 4076.
What is it, 4076?
4076.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Any additional comments, Mr. Solomon?
Thank you. So,
Any additional comments?
No. I just want to let you know that I'll give you a check for 500.
Thank you.
Ms. Sanders?
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to commend this young man. He started out by saying he wanted to be an Eagle Scout for life. Certainly, I anticipate that you will have a long, fruitful life. You've already began something today as only a freshman, did I understand?
Yes.
And you want to complete this project even before your sophomore year begins. So I have no doubt that your life will be full and rich. I must say I concur with Mr. Duran. I think that because of the nature of this statue that you're going to be proposing and putting up, I think a lot of people will honor it and respect it, and I doubt seriously that we will see too much graffiti or anybody trying to deface it. At least that's a hope. So I want to commend you, your scout leader, and your parents. I think they've done a fine job in providing you the environment in which you can grow and develop and be the fine young man that you are to stand before us and make such a strong and positive presentation. So I commend you for your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sanders. And equally, Joaquin, and I want to say to the council and to the audience that when Joaquin and his dad and I met Saturday, we had our full conversation in Spanish. And Joaquin is just as articulate, just as polished in Spanish as he is in English. And very impressed that you carry that, Joaquin. You're an impressive young man. And I also will support this and also give a contribution to be named later. But thank you very much for being here. We do have a request from Antonio Ortega with the Office of Manuel Perez to also speak on this item. So if you don't mind waiting for a minute, Joaquin, so that Antonio can address the council.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Once again, Antonio Ortega here representing the Office of Assembly Member Manuel Perez. And like you, we also join in publicly supporting this project. Mr. Villegas, Jesus Villegas, and his son, Joaquin Antonio Villegas, also contacted our office last week. They provided us with the information that we saw this evening, and we're equally impressed with the amount of detail and time that they put forth for this project. So at this time, seeing that this body will also be supporting the project, we would also again like to publicly state that on behalf of the Assembly member And we too, I will ensure that we also make a financial contribution on behalf of our office. So that's all I have
Thank
for
you.
this evening.
Thank you, Antonio. If there are no additional questions, comments, is this an action item? Let me just look at the,
It doesn't really say, but I'll make a motion that we accept the project as presented and authorize staff to work with the Mr. Villegas and the Eagle Scout troop, or Boy Scout Troop 4076 to make this a reality.
okay, motion by Mr. Edney, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Solomon, please ballot.
Motion carried 5-0.
Okay, thank you, Joaquin, very much. Gracias. Okay, let's move on to item 15, discussion and necessary action related to the proposals received for the CDBG program year 2011-12. We'll have a presentation by Marcela Piedra.
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. The item before you tonight for consideration.
Why'd you maybe give them just a minute? Let them-
Ready, Marcela?
Ready? To continue the presentation, I provided a copy of the PowerPoint presentation that we prepared to give you the summary of the proposals that we received for funding consideration under the Community Development Block Grant Program. It's actually 4 slides. Of course, the full report and necessary documents are attached to your council summary report. Every year prior to us preparing our draft annual action plan, we provide you with this presentation in order to seek your direction as far as projects, programs that you wish to consider for funding. Based upon the anticipated funds we hope to receive under the CDBG program. Also, we have state program income that we generate from previous grants that we've been awarded and that we have provided loans for, which we get payoffs, and that's program income that we consider as part of this allocation process. We anticipate that for program year 2011-12, we anticipate having available to us $758,815. Of course, we don't get this final amount until later in the year. However, we do start planning, as we do have a deadline to submit this annual action plan to HUD of May the 15th. In summary, the projects proposals that we received for funding consideration for the year 2011-12 are basically summarized in this slide. We have, under the public service category, we have received proposals from Woman Haven to continue the operation of their transitional shelter. They're requesting $20,000. Catholic Charities House of Hope, they provide shelter for women and children, $20,000. Catholic Charities, again, for their senior nutrition program to provide meals to the seniors. They're requesting $14,800. The El Centro Police Athletic League, they are contemplating offering a free year soccer program. They're asking for $20,000. We have a request from the Alzheimer's Association to provide education to their care providers. They're asking for $9,400. The Sure Helpline Crisis Center, learning how to tell, they're proposing to educate parents about a possible child abuse. They're asking for $16,230. And then fair housing, which is a required activity under HUD, however, we need to classify it under public services. This is, of course, a service that the city needs to provide on an annual basis, $45,000. So under this category, public services, the total requested amount is $145,430. Under the public facilities infrastructure, we have a request from Parks and Recreation to fund, hopefully complete the indoor sports complex, which is a project that we're currently working on. Their request came in at $436,030. Under the housing activities, programs that we are requesting funding consideration for are the lead-based paint abatement of $5,000, housing rehab $200,000, asbestos removal $10,000, and for off-site improvements, which would include sidewalk repairs for those projects that are participating under the housing rehab program, $10,000. So under this category, we're looking at $225,000. We also had a request from the Building and Safety Department for code enforcement of $50,000. However, this project, this proposal was deemed ineligible as we do have restrictions from HUD to do code enforcement, but nonetheless, we did receive this request. We also are received a request or are considering providing interim assistance to the El Centro Public Library for the temporary relocation of that facility, considering setting aside $100,000 for this temporary relocation. And of course, under grant administration for planning and administration, $151,763. Below, you see the actual breakdown of the funds that we have available and also the caps that we work with within the program. The two caps that we have to be concerned about when we're allocating these funds is, of course, the grant administration, which we cannot exceed 20% of the funds available. In this case, we have a cap of $134,163. Under public services, $100,622. And for other eligible projects, which would basically cover the interim assistance, the public facility, housing activities, we have available to us $436,030. So under the CDBG allocation, this would come directly from HUD. We anticipate $670,815. Again, this number is an estimate that we currently have from HUD. However, it could be less. We don't have the feeling that it could be more, but at least if we can stay stable, which is what we saw from the previous year, this is what we anticipate having available to us. Under the program income funds, we anticipate having $88,000. The breakdown, again, we are working with these caps, is we cannot exceed $17,600 for grant administration, public services $13,200, and for other eligible projects $57,200. So this brings us to the $758,815. Some of the activities that we are suggesting that you consider for funding are under the housing activities, housing rehab $100,000, which would allow us to complete at least 2 projects. The reason for this request is we currently don't have any grants available to do housing rehab. Asbestos testing abatement, this is consistent with our housing rehab program, recommending setting aside $10,000 for these purposes. Same thing with lead base, $5,000. So we're making a recommendation to consider setting aside $115,000 for housing activities. Under public services, again, this is a required activity under HUD, $45,000 for the fair housing. However, keep in mind that we do have the maximum of $113,822 that we cannot exceed under this category. For the public facilities infrastructure, consider setting aside $347,052 towards the indoor sports complex completion, and of course the interim assistance to the library for $100,000 to assist us in the relocation of the library. And for grant administration, we're going up to the maximum, and the reason being, historically, we have not used 100% of our grant administration dollars. However, given the current situation with the state and obviously the destiny of the redevelopment agency, in this particular case, we're recommending that we increase and we set aside the full amount available to us for grant administration purposes. So that's why you see the $151,763. So this would cover the full amount of the grant. Again, we're providing you this summary. This is our suggested activities. What we do hope for is that we have the 45,000 for the fair housing and of course the grant administration. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Marcela. Before we ask questions from the council, I want to call two people that have asked to speak related to this item. Martha Ranson with Catholic Charities, and then after that, Dr. Mosier with Catholic Charities as well.
Good evening, Mayor Silva and council members. Thank you so much for hearing us. I'm Martha Ranson with Catholic Charities. I'm the Director of Homeless Women's Services for the diocese, and I oversee the House of Hope here in El Centro. We have really appreciated the $20,000 grants that you've allotted to us in the last few years. The money is key to helping us assist 100 families a year. Last year we did serve 65 children and 35 women of the 100 families that we served. And the funds do help underwrite the cost of a case manager to help those families move on, as well as just some infrastructure problems, not problems, but paying for the insurance for the building and other kind of basic costs that help us keep the program running. So we hope you'll consider continuing to help our most marginalized members of our community. Homeless women and children really have a tough time in our community. So we encourage you to consider funding us at some level yet again, because I do think we provide a great service for the city of El Centro. Thank you.
Dr. Mosier?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Before I speak on behalf of Catholic Charities as the Deputy Director, if I might just quickly interject as Chairman of Troop 53 in North Park in San Diego, having witnessed many Eagle Scout projects myself, I have to say that as a Scout, Eagle Scout myself, I've never seen a presentation as wonderful as that. And at this time last year, my son became an Eagle Scout working with the city of Imperial in San Diego, doing a zero-scape landscaping in cooperation with the city council there. So I feel blessed by having Imperial County and Imperial Beach both helping out the scouts, and I applaud you for that. I've been up here many times advocating for seniors, and I don't want to be a broken record. So we received yesterday a little note from one of our home delivered meals seniors that I think says it all, and I would like to briefly read this. It says, I am writing to El Centro City Council. I am writing to commend the seniors nutrition program. I have participated for a number of years, first at the meal site and now the home delivered meals, which are good. Any help you could give the program would be appreciated. By the way, you are also doing a good job. As I write this on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, I am sure he would have supported the program. Sincerely, Richard Mallet. So the seniors certainly appreciate the support that you have provided. And I would just also add that as someone trying to always respond to the challenges and the requirements of scarce public dollars, we noted this year in the application process for agencies that were currently funded the challenge to do more. And we looked at that, and what we have decided, in addition to seniors over the age of 60 who are homebound, we would offer to provide home-delivered meals to disabled adults, severely disabled adults. We receive about 1 or 2 calls per week from people being discharged from the hospital who have no home health care, who have no provider, who are looking for a meal because they can't provide it themselves, and we have to turn them down because they're not over the age of 60. We would commit with these fundings to expand that to include this now non-served population, and that would be a great blessing for those individuals as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy.
Could you address for us a little bit your current sources of funding?
We currently receive funding from the Area Agency on Aging. They provide us resources to do congregate meals and home-delivered meals throughout the county. Those funds, the state portion, it's a litany of all the same things you've said, keep on getting cut back. And so this past year, we lost over $30,000 in the home-delivered meal program. Despite the need of home-delivered rising, we've had to put a cap on the number of people we can serve under that because of the funding levels. And then the seniors themselves contribute a minimal donation. Currently, we're getting 33 cents a meal.
What about United Way or the Catholic Diocese? Or
The Catholic Diocese gives the agency $500,000 as a whole, and that money goes to other programs like the Food Resource Center. And then we do fundraising. A number of you have participated in the fundraising that we do annually, and 100% of that money remains locally in Imperial County.
Our proposed program, on the surface, it's a sports program. Soccer is our leading program at PAL. We're currently serving approximately 400 kids. They attend practices and games almost as nightly form, Monday through Thursday. We're looking to expand the program. We went retroactive. We took it back to how it used to be. Everybody's for free. It's completely funded by PAL or donations. We want to, when I started at PAL in the fall of 2009, we only had about 150 kids in soccer. That spring of 2010, we went to free and grew to 300. Our current season's at 400, and we're anticipating an estimated 500 coming up in next year, or I'm sorry, this coming fall, spring season. So we want to expand that and continue to bring them on as many kids as we can, get them in the program, get them off the streets. We've secured funding for all of our additional equipment. We need the soccer balls, nets. We have plenty of volunteers out there. We currently have about 36 volunteers working with the program. So we're looking for using the grant to expand that and provide the additional uniforms and fees associated with the league.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We may have some questions later. Okay, I'm going to bring it back to anybody else from the audience, any other service providers that wish to speak? No? I'm going to bring it back to council. Does council have questions, comments?
I do. Where do you want to
Okay, Mr. Edney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Piedra, I have, as I mentioned earlier when this item was on the agenda a month or two ago, I have inquired with the Imperial Valley, or I'm sorry, they've changed, it's Imperial County Association of Realtors, through their president, and they have taken it to their board. They are willing to fund and provide the fair housing services to the city of El Centro.
And specifically to that, Councilmember Enid, we did check with HUD, and it has to be a HUD-certified agency that provides the fair housing. And unfortunately, the Board of Realtors, they checked, and they are not certified. And so we cannot utilize their services.
Well, then they just send them back their $45,000. I mean, you know, this is the kind of stupidity that we deal with. You're telling me some private organization that's hired from outside the valley is more qualified than the people that live and work in the real estate industry every day and who are agreeing to volunteer their services, who are required to take training in fair housing, ethics, and agency on an ongoing basis.
If they were HUD certified, then we can certainly, I mean, obviously, we go through an RFP process every 3 years to seek these services. And if they were HUD certified, then we can certainly entertain them or look at a proposal from them.
Let me ask a related
Is
question.
that process to HUD certify, Ms. Piedra? Is that the agency or the
Yeah,
individual?
the agency would have to go through that process. They have to go through that. The actual Board of Realtors would have to go through that HUD certification process.
So
To
it's not
become-
really about assisting the public. It's following HUD's guidelines. Right.
And the reason being, Councilmember Ernie, is whenever there's any type of complaint, they have to follow a investigation process and what have you, and so that's the particular training they need to have in order to be able to provide the proper follow-up and
I'm not blaming
services.
you. It's another wasted program
Ma'am,
that could be
Councilman, before you
handled
le-
in a more efficient, less costly manner to the public.
Before you leave this item, I need to ask a question because I should have asked this to my own staff. When is the contract for fair housing for this fiscal year? When is that?
It's going to end on 2012. This is actually our last year with them, so we're going to be going out and doing an RFP to seek fair
Could
housing
you,
services again.
following up, I think, was what your question is, could you find out the details of how to get certified?
Yes,
And maybe
yes.
I could suggest to the organization that if it's a
We can do that.
process that they could do. You know, they were willing to provide it with minimal assistance only for holding the fair. In which, and the funny thing is,
And they can
is
work with us with that
the
particular
board
issue. They
has
can work with us.
authorized in the budget, which I'm on the budget committee, authorized up to $10,000 of its own money, in addition to the members of the board volunteering their time for the services, but actually put money out of their budget towards actually hosting the fair housing program. So if you can get that information to me, I'll get that to him, and maybe we can go through what I'm sure will be a nonsensical process. That being said, I think there's one thing in here that I think is very important, and that is the public library temporary relocation. That is not something that we talked about a number of months ago because we didn't have the details, but I think we've all heard from members of the community how important it is to get that relocation. So I applaud the staff for putting that in. We need to put as much funds as we can to getting that program. Ms. Sanders and I have been working with the task force to identify and bring back to the council, I believe in February, at least an action plan to try to get a temporary facility open as soon as possible. I guess my problem is I don't know where do we get the money to fund these requests from the outside agencies. I've been an advocate for doing that over the years. The library issue, I think, takes away some of our ability to do that. Obviously, I was hoping that the fair housing thing could be solved. That apparently is not going to be solved in the next 3 months to the satisfaction of HUD. So I don't know whether options we have.
Well, if my math is correctly, Marcela, if we carve out the 45,000 off of the public service, that leaves us about $69,000, and we have a request for, in round numbers, $100,000 in requested funding, with only $68,000 available.
That's
Is that
correct.
correct?
That's correct. So you really only have about 68,000 maximum for public services.
The temporary library funds comes from the infrastructure
It comes from the other
section.
assistance.
Right, it's not from the public assistance.
But in order to be, I see what you're trying to do. In order for you to be able to carve out 68,000 from the funding available, there would have to be a reduction on the interim assistance. Those are the categories: the public facilities, infrastructure, or the housing activities. So that's where the reduction.
How much total money is available?
It's $758,815.
Mr. Mayor, she has it allocated, and that's the issue. There isn't 68,000 because she has all the money allocated
We would have to
through
reduce
these
in some of
things.
these
So we would
activities.
either have to
Oh, I
cut.
see. So there, under that scenario, there is no funding set aside?
No, unless you start reducing from this category or this category or this category.
Right.
And we can't touch housing activity.
Again, these are activities that we are suggesting. You can actually reduce the housing. Unfortunately, I mean, if we had a grant available to us for housing, you wouldn't even see this recommendation here, but that is not the case. We have not been able to receive grants from the state. Of course, it's very competitive right now, and so we haven't been able to receive funds, and they haven't issued any notice of funding availability for funds for this coming fiscal year, so we don't have that available to us. we have the indoor sports complex, which you could reduce if you were interested in funding public service proposals, and then, of course, the library.
I think if I could, with regard to the indoor sports complex and the public library temporary relocation, how close does that get us to our goal? I mean, we're looking to have the indoor sports complex completed, open December,
Of 12, 2012.
so is that gonna get us there? Yes. Okay. With
You
our
took
other
two
funding
actions, one
sources
on
and
Saturday,
everything.
and this one gets us there.
It's gonna get us there. Because what we don't wanna do is say yes to the 347 and then still be short. Okay, so the 347 gets us our indoor sports complex, open up December 2012. Okay. What do we get for the $100,000 for the public library temporary reload?
Well,
Does that get it- does it-
in a
does that
general sense, I
secure
think
us?
it, well, obviously, we don't know for sure, but we had to identify funds that were available to be able to get something open. Our goal, I think, is to get something open before May. Before summer, I think, was the...
Before, I think we're talking about two things. One is, the Earthquake Committee met and reviewed the latest information about long-term solution, and on Saturday, you allocated funds for that long-term solution. That is about a 3-year process. Just knowing what, building fire stations, we're talking about taking out a part of the library and rebuilding it on-site. So you're really looking at, that $100,000 will buy you a year, but you'll have 2 more years in front of you of doing that again, of rental space. It's figure a 3-year process.
The idea, at least at the task force, and we'll be meeting again, I think next week or the week after, before the end of the January, so we can come prepared. But the idea was, our total goal was to get a fully equipped temporary location reopened prior to school getting out, which is June 3rd. Now, obviously, we have more information that staff will bring us based on the recommendations were made, but that was our goal because we didn't want the kids to have to go through summer. That's the estimated cost for us to lease a building. Obviously, we have in the budget the cost for running a library, but we didn't have any extra funds for renting or leasing space.
Has a determination been made as to whether or not we could use some of the library impact fees for the library on a
We did have
temporary
that looked
basis?
at, and, well, it's, if I may speak with, go ahead. But it's that, it does not increase capacity, so the answer is no. If we were opening a new branch and had the old library still open, yes. All we're doing is we're closing one branch, opening another. There's no increase in capacity. You can't use impact fees.
Okay,
You can't use the impact fees, we're not increasing our capacity.
I'm not understanding that. We're renting or using a very small room over at the community center, moving into a larger temporary facility. How is that not increasing capacity?
You're not leaving the one that they're in right now. That was always there.
No, the whole idea, and this was, Ms. Sanders and I asked this question, I think might have been the first question at the task meeting, is where are our sources of potential revenue to pay for this? It was automatic. You cannot use impact fees unless it's a permanent expansion of your facility.
The existing damaged facility. And
Or a
because-
new one. And we're
Yes,
not
or a
doing
new
either.
one.
This is a temporary situation. In
Okay.
fact, if I think the language that Ms. Alcina provided was specific in nature, that you could not use it for temporary relocation. In the, what is it, the state law or?
Can we use it to rebuild on the earthquake damaged site?
Actually, the law says specifically that you cannot use it to replace a building that has been damaged what is it, a
Natural disaster.
Yes. Very specific.
Okay.
Which is why we
Good
asked for
grief,
the
Charlie
RDA money
Brown.
to do the replacement.
Thank you. Ms. Sullivan, Sanders, you have something?
Yeah, well, I have no questions, Mr. Mayor. I think the staff has presented us in the very best possible scenario that we could look at, given the current economic I want to use the term hard times. Certainly, your committee has looked at every avenue that we possibly could look at as it relates to the library and where we go from there. We've heard staff in the name of Mrs. Reiser tell us what it would do if we were to carve out funds from our indoor sports facility, and that has been a project we've been working on for a number of years, and we really want to see that completed. So I have no questions of staff other than to tell them how much I appreciate the efforts they've put forth and the community input that they received in order to come up with the particular suggestions that they have before us.
Mr. Salman, this is difficult because I hope that we can find a way to provide some level of funding to senior nutrition program. I think that's critical, given the times that we have, the need that we have, and I don't know what these seniors will do without any funding. I'm not sure that we can go to the 20,000, and I don't know where to cut. But I think that if there's a way to provide some level of funding, I'd like to ask the council for some suggestions. To provide some level of funding.
Mr. Mayor, we have always, this council has always taken a position of trying to do whatever we can to enhance the quality of life for individuals. And I know the difficulty we face as it relates to a portion of our population having to go without, especially without food. I thought Councilmember Walker asked the appropriate question when she asked Mr. Mosier whether or not there was other funding streams that might backfill some of the funds as it relates to their nutrition program. Specifically, he identified two categories. One was Area Agency on Aging and perhaps some funding out of the diocese. Now, I'm not sure if that is going to be sufficient or if there is still the need for this $20,000 level, and only Mr. Mosier can assist us in that.
Yes, please. If you don't get any funding at all from this, what would that mean? What's the impact?
Well, we would have to reduce services in home delivery. If I might, Mrs. Sanders, we're using the CDBG to backfill shortfalls in the Area Agency on Aging.
Oh,
There's no
It's not the
funding.
reverse, okay.
That's right, and the diocese funds are fixed and they're already spoken for, so we can't use those when there's federal grants, because then it would be private donations supporting a federal program. In talking, may I, Martha? In talking to my colleague Martha, actually the amount that we're asking for senior nutrition is $14,800, not
Yes,
$20,000.
correct.
Okay.
Catholic Charities is willing to take less on the House of Hope in order to help you close the gap.
Okay.
And so, and if I might, Maricel, I think you can only have 68,822, period, because if you add the 45,000,
Right.
you're limited to
Yeah,
the 15%.
That's
So,
right.
But the way I understand it, in order for us to add anything, we have to subtract it from somewhere else.
you would have to subtract it from the request for social services.
Yeah, but
No, from
We-
the.
right now,
from
the
public
budget,
service.
Can't go over 150,000. But if you have 45,000 for fair housing,
yeah.
68,000.
I mean, let's,
Mr. Mayor?
yeah,
Mr. Mayor?
okay.
No, from your
Okay,
public
Miss-
service.
Mr.
Mr.
Mosier,
Mosier.
Mr.
Yeah.
Mosier,
Mr. Mayor?
don't leave the podium, don't leave the podium. I think
Mr.
the
Redney?
mayor may have another
No,
question.
I would like to propose something for the mayor and the council to consider. These programs in this economy are so impacted by the direct benefit to our community. I think I've told this council, I worked with the senior nutrition program for a number of years. There was a time a number of years ago where I actually delivered those meals on my free time, if you call it that. the impact to those people's lives of not having any meals at all is so significant. Certainly, Women Haven and the House of Hope, who are getting squeezed every which way we can. Here's my suggestion to propose to the council, that we take 100 out of the housing rehabilitation program. We take out $45,000 and fund the Women Haven, Catholic Charities, House of Hope, and the Senior Nutrition Program for $15,000 each.
How much are you removing from the housing activities, Mr.?
No, I'm
How much are
taking
you
out of the-
suggesting?
I'm taking
45,000?
$45,000 from the housing rehabilitation program, and I understand the impact that does, but let's look at the impact. As Ms. Piedra said, under 100,000, we likely get two houses in this city rehabilitated. I'm not saying those aren't important, but we got to make priorities. If you look at the impact for Women Haven, Catholic Charities, House of Hope, and the Senior Nutrition Program, in this time of very limited funds, the impact to our community is far greater by providing assistance to those three programs than unfortunately, the one house that doesn't get to be added to the rehabilitation program.
I like that proposal.
Well, what it will do is it will ensure that those that are most in need will have those needs met.
I think we do have a representative from Women Haven in the audience. I wonder if perhaps we could hear from the Women Haven representative as well.
14, you're saying?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Morris.
1,400 from Catholic Charities.
We've heard from both Catholic Charities and now
Good evening, everybody.
Can you say your name and address for the record? And
Frank Marquez, Deputy Executive Director for the Center for Family Solutions. And I want to thank you for the great job in sorting through all this difficult, itemized spreadsheet here. It's difficult times for all of us. And yes, we serve the population here in the city of El Centro, trying to help the most unfortunate people that struggle with housing issues, domestic abuse, working with families, directing them to other social services that they may need to be able to, make a difference in their life at this moment of crisis in this community of El Centro and the Valley as a whole. But in this particular case, this funds, serving the population here. We have 14 transitional houses here in El Centro alone, and we have a shelter down, confidential location. But yes, these monies have always been very helpful in bridging the gap for us as well. We have had struggles in the past with the budget, and we're just hanging there, trying to survive and trying to make ends meet as we move forward. And I think everybody's in the same boat for the most part. So your consideration and giving us a hand, the other social services here, I think we're here working with the city council, the city, trying to keep this afloat to survive. Hopefully things turn around in the next couple of years.
Mr. Marquez, what could you tell us about your client numbers and also your funding?
Our funding, of course, in the last year, we had reduction of funding. We had reduction of staff. We even had reduction of our space in which we serve our populations to kind of make ends meet. Right now, our future is a little uncertain. We have read some of the budgets that are being targeted now by the state of California. So really, we don't know where we're going to be in the next 12 months, but we're hopeful that a fair resolution comes out of that, so we can continue at least to serve the most needy and be able to provide some service to them. We have seen an increase in services in housing prevention and rapid rehousing, people that are merging to live with other family members, the increase of violence also because of tension that builds up trying to readjust to these lifestyles, living with other family members that they're not used to and whatnot. But we're here serving. We look at least, as far as domestic violence, we see about 900 clients that went through last year with restraining orders. That's not counting others that didn't go through the whole program, plus ended up going to other social services of need. So
Thank you, Mr. Marquez.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have one question for Ms. Piedra. Part of the funding is tied to certain milestones in terms of documentation by these agencies. Has the documentation in the past been satisfactory to the agency?
Yes, it has. And we do communicate. I mean, obviously, we get monthly performance reports when we get the request for reimbursement from the, what we call subrecipients, which are the nonprofits that are receiving funding. So we haven't had any performance issues. They've complied with all the requirements of the program.
Thank you.
If I just,
I personally like Mr. Edney's recommendation.
I would make that a motion, Mr. Mayor.
if I may suggest something just for clarification, as far as, if I understood correctly, it's 45,000 that you're allocating for the public service category and reducing housing. And if I may refer you to the backup on the council summary report, if I'm understanding correctly, maybe this is a recommendation for you to consider, which would get us within the $45,000 mark. Woman Haven is at 20,000. Is it the pleasure of council to fund them 100%?
No, 15.
Okay, and the reason why I say that is, if you look at the House of Hope, which is a question that we had with them, is 10,000 is being used for what we characterize as should have been maintenance repairs for the facility. So my recommendation to you was to consider funding Woman Haven at 20,000, 10,000 Catholic Charities, giving them 10,000 to serve their population or direct services to beneficiaries, and 14,800 to the Catholic Senior Nutrition, which would total up to 44,800.
I want to follow up question though. So, are we allowed to put 10,000 for requested repair?
Regular maintenance and repair, it's questionable, and that's the reason why we pointed that
You're
out.
suggesting we could get a
Yes.
rejection from that?
Exactly. In their budget, they included 10,000 for direct services to their clients and 10,000 for, again, what we look at as repair maintenance work. And so, we
Okay, I'll amend my
question
motion.
that cost.
So what's the proposed allocation then?
So it'd be
What I would suggest
20,000
is we
Women
give them
Haven,
10,000 for direct
House of
services
Hope,
to
and
clients.
14,800 for senior
So
nutrition.
a total of
44,800.
So we would take 44,800 out of the housing rehabilitation program if provided to public services through those three agencies.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Edney, second by Ms. Walker. Please ballot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion carried 5-0.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcela. Yeah, right. Let's go move on to item number 16, which is a review of the mid-year budget. Status, we have a presentation by our finance director, Leticia Salcido.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Welcome to the mid-year budget review. Today we'll be reviewing the results of operation for the first 6 months of this fiscal year 2011, with 50% of the year elapsed. As an overview, The nation and the state continue to experience a recession of a great magnitude that has affected a great number of major industries and business sectors. This recession reached our local economy in fiscal year 2010 and affected all major revenue sources. The city took action and developed the steps necessary to meet the decline in revenues and was able to close the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2010 with a fund balance of $5.6 million. It was projected that those same trends of fiscal year 2010 would continue into fiscal year 2011, and that is why the budget was developed with lower level of allocations in order to meet the economy's slashed revenues. Because of this, departments continue to operate at minimum levels with lower allocations for their expenditures in both operations and capital. The city continues to also operate with reduced staffing levels and has not filled various vacant key positions, such as the Associate City Attorney, the Director of HR, 2 dispatchers, Fire Safety Coordinator, and the Associate Planner. However, the biggest unknown, the greatest challenge, and the greatest concern continues to be the state's ability to raise local revenues. The state continues to battle with a budget deficit of more than $25 billion, and while Proposition 22 prohibits the state from borrowing or taking away local funds, the state is very creative and always finds some creative mechanism to circumvent those type of restrictions. An example of this is a proposed budget for fiscal year 2012, the governor's proposed budget for 2012, which plans to disestablish the RDAs. This action is proposed as one of the tools to help the state balance their budget. However, this action, while beneficial to the state, if approved, will bring challenges of significant proportions to the city's budget. The state, however, has not approved this action, and there is still not enough information available. As an initial action, the city took some action on Saturday, and Finance will continue to monitor and assess the situation and will keep council apprised of any new developments. And now to the results of operations for the first 6 months. Total revenues for the first 6 months totaled $8.5 million, which is 38% of the total amount budgeted for the year. 38% is below the 50% mark, as some of the larger revenue sources come in during the second half of the year. For example, in January, we received the motor vehicle license fee in the amount of $1.9 million, as well as a triple flip in the amount of $1.1 million. Therefore, that is a good amount, a good percentage, actually. This percentage for the same period last fiscal year was 26%. So overall, we're doing better than last year. It is projected that the revenue will continue on track and the city will meet its budgeted projections. Individually, for property tax, we have received 57%, with the other 45% to be received in April. For the sales tax and triple flip at 41%, however, as I mentioned before, in January we received $1.1 million, so that should go up. The motor vehicle in lieu tax at 5%, as I mentioned before, we received $1.9 million the first half in January. For TOT at 42% is a good percentage, as this only represents the first 5 months of the year, with the December return not due until January, the end of January. For other taxes at 31%, that's mainly for franchise of the gas and cable, as well as business licenses. Gas is not, the gas franchise is not due to come in until April. And then for business license, it only reflects 5 months, as the December is not due until January. Again, the same situation. Building-related fees at 101%, 336,000, is excellent. It has exceeded our projections for the year. However, that's mainly from one project. So it's not that.
That's the power plant.
That's just
Yes.
sad.
That's the
Yes.
power plant.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we can hold you up a second, so I don't want that number to be misread for the public. In calendar year 10, we issued no new home permits. The only reason we're at that 300,000 is because one permit was pulled by IID for the power plant. Otherwise, we would be at a very small number, 3-digit number over there.
Yes.
Very small. So I want to make sure that the public understands, that's why we're at 100%. And the rest of the year,
Well, that's considered in baseball analogy, that's a grand slam.
Yes. Okay.
please continue, thank you.
The next in line, service charges at 47%, grants and other agencies at 50%, fines and other revenues 41%. This one is low due to interest revenue. We're earning at LAVE 0.4%, 0.4%. Yes, yes. Our other investments, it's really hard out there. Our other investments are not as bad, but very low in comparison to other years. Yes. Anyways, overall at 30%, we're on track. And as mentioned before, projected revenues will continue on track, and the city will meet budget projections based on the information we have as of today.
Leticia, can you explain the triple flip?
A triple flip is a sales tax in lieu. That's basically when the state was having problems way back 3-4 years ago.
95
Like
years.
2 years ago.
They took away a portion of our sales tax, and they said, okay, now out of property taxes, we're going to give you more to basically make up for the amount that they took away from the city.
And the
They
reason
call
was
it a,
property tax would grow so fast, it would make up the difference.
right.
That
So
was the-
basically, they took away our sales tax
Okay, got it.
and gave us, through another source, this
But it was also
same amount of money.
timing,
Right.
because sales tax is paid much quicker to the state, so they had that revenue here. Property tax is paid, as
Later.
you can see, we're waiting for it. We just got it 6 months in the year. So the state get to build all that money, and then they have to make a payment for 6 months, and yet they got the sales tax revenue every month. So it was a way for them to get the flip.
But
That's
because
why it was
it
called the
based
triple flip.
upon a certain amount of property tax, since that property tax has been revalued downwards, we're not getting a dollar for dollar swap.
Really? The state wouldn't do that to us, would they?
Sorry, please continue, Ms. Lucy.
Yes. As to expenditures, expenditures total for the first 6 months, oh, that is wrong, 12/31/10, 11,181,000, which is 50% of our total expenditures budgeted for the year. This is within the acceptable range at this time of the year. Individually, the general government at $2.8 million is at 61%. While this may seem high, that's not the case, as there are some major payments that are due at the beginning of the year. For example, the liability and property insurance, we paid it in July, and the amount was $1.2 million. Let me see. Police at 48% is within the acceptable range. Fire at 50%, right on track. Public Works, 47%, again, a good average. 51% for building, just 1% over the mark. They paid for some software maintenance fees at the beginning of the year, and pretty much the same situation, but they're on track. Engineering at 41%, and planning are within the 50% mark. Park maintenance, 38%. That might be, that looks low. It might be some of the contracts are being paid at the end of the year. For recreation at 52%, that is above the 50% mark expected at this time of the year. But the cause of that is that due to some summer programs that begin at the beginning of the year, July and August. However, we understand that some of those programs will most likely continue on the last month of the year, and that is why we are monitoring their expenditures, the available resources, and provide the best possible service to the community. Transfers out, this is for special events not yet been used. Cost allocation of 50%. So overall, total expenditures within the 50% mark expected at this time of the year.
Ms. Salcido, I would have expected the library to be significantly less, under the even 41%. Are we continuing with new purchases of material? Is that primarily?
We still continue to fund our salaries and benefits. Also, there has been some purchase of supplies, and in relocating from one building to another, there has been some expenditures in that area too.
I wouldn't think that room's big enough for all of their staff.
Okay. As to fund balance, as I mentioned before, fund balance, we started with $5.6 million in fund balance. The budget projects and estimates revenues and expenditures in the amount of $22.4 million. Should be a wash. So we should be able to end the year at $5.6 million. However, this amount will be reduced to $5.2 million here due to $392,000. That's a one-time expenditure and a budget adjustment to repair a city facility, the plunge. Yes, go ahead. I mean, yes, excuse me.
Well, the plunge is, I
Plunge.
think it was the plunge.
I don't think we should repair it now.
Splash pad.
Well, I don't know if we can get it repaired for that amount of money. Of course we should.
It's not there.
Reminder that we would place our claim against the bonds for that amount of money when the project's done.
So $5.2 million. That the designations for that $5.2 million are the 10% reserve for economic unknowns in the amount of $2.2 million. The designation for accrued leave liability, $569,000, and the designation for vehicle and major equipment replacement, $2.4 million, a total of $5.2, with undesignated unreserved of 0. Questions?
Thank you, Leticia.
Yes.
Questions from council?
I think we need to send Ms. Salcido to Sacramento.
Sure, that's rhetorical. Mr. Sala?
Yeah. You know, for too long, the Imperial Valley has been neglected by our state and by the federal government. We have high unemployment. We have a small population. So people that are running for office in the state of California don't even come down here and express their point of view to the residents to give them a clear picture of how they should vote. Don't bother with the Imperial Valley. This particular budget is going to be, and is, as you had indicated, really somewhat tight. And so we have to give out awards to businesses for their participation, as we did earlier. We have to have volunteers work on special projects like the young man, and we will be needing more of that in the future. But my point is, if we were to hit a speed bump in the next 6 months that causes us to go off course, my understanding from looking at the budget is that we have kind of like a reserve of maybe $7 million. Am I off on that?
5.6, the
Pardon?
5.6, the fund balance, yes.
Okay. So if we were to have, excuse me, I get choked up when I talk about money. If we were to have a major earthquake again, the government in Sacramento decided to hit us up for additional funds, it would seem to me that everything would then be put on the table as far as cuts, as far as tightening our particular budget. One of the things that we have been very good about saying is that, let me read exactly what we said. By comparison to many other cities around the county, El Centro economy is performing relatively well. If we were to hit this speed bump, we might be inclined to be in a barrel with some of these other cities. How do you see us, in your mind, making our way through this sea of hard times?
Okay, as mentioned before, the various divisions and departments within the city are operating already at with reduced allocations for both operations and capital. However, if it's a small speed bump, we have under general government a contingency of $7,000. So if it's a small speed bump where we need to donate or buy some plaques, we can take it from that. However, in our fund balance, the $5.6 million here, we have down here already designated for that specific purpose 10% for economic unknowns in the amount of $2.2 million. So if that were the case, if it's a major speed bump, just for example, as the earthquake that we had in April, then this would be the amount of money that we would probably have to reach into for that purpose. That would still leave us with $2.5 million in our reserves and enough to continue operations.
Okay, let me hear what some of the others have to say. Thank you. That was a good response.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just want to thank Ms. Salcido for this, her efforts. In light of what's going on economically, I think you've put together a very positive and reflective picture of our financial status here in El Centro. But at the same time, it is not the doom and gloom. I think it's an austere budget, but it certainly speaks to the level of leadership of the council as well as our staff, and looking out at what we can do to still maintain a level of service that the citizens have grown accustomed. So while I'm not pleased with what's going on necessarily in Sacramento, and I think that each of us in our own way will weigh in on that with our state legislators and the governor to ensure that as much as we possibly can, that the funding streams that have been accustomed to local government will stay intact. We all know that the battle will be hard fought. We may not win, but that do not mean that we're not prepared to go in there and fight for what we think should be rightfully ours. When we talk about the budgets over the state of California, it's been almost 2 decades. We've had triple flips, and the mayor asked about that. We've had ERAP, and we all remember that is when they took certain monies to offset the funding that would normally go to education. They took that out of the city's coffers. And then before Prop 1A and Prop 22, we had a taking of monies. So while you're correct, the state is very creative in the ways they can come in and reallocate. That's the new term now. We're reallocating those funding streams. But at the same time, they put local government really in a hard place. And the citizens of El Centro, as well, which are the citizens of California, will have their voices heard through us from this council, going and talking with our respective legislative bodies and the governor, either through the League of Cities or SCAG, or just catching them on the street and talking to them at these public hearings that they have available to them. So thank you very much for your efforts. I want to thank Mr. Duran for his efforts and all other staff members in your department, Ms. Salcido, that worked on this.
Yes, thank you.
I want to say that, and obviously we still need to plan for this and prepare for this under a worst-case scenario. But speaking of talking to our legislators, I did get to speak to our Assembly Member Perez on Friday at an event, and Mr. Perez did indicate to me that he would not support the eliminating the the RDA, and he honestly did not think that there would be enough support in the assembly, at least to pursue that. Whether there's some other, creative mechanisms, that may be the case, but at least that's the assurances that I received from him when I spoke to him on Friday. Any other comments related to the budget?
I'd like to commend you, Ms. Salcido, and your staff for the outstanding job that you do with the budget and with the finances. Is very much appreciated. I think in addition to taking a look at our general fund, it would probably be appropriate for us to have a mid-year check of our redevelopment and our other special funds.
Okay.
Okay.
Ms. Reddy, comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think your comments are valid. I do think it's probably an unlikely scenario that the legislature moves forward with the RDA, but I guess that's only partial good news, because we're sitting here in a situation where the state has just stolen, or will, between the 10-11 budget years, $3.1 million from RDA without closing them down. So, while the legislators seem to be concerned about actually closing RDAs down, and actually took the money. While we may not get our RDA shut down, if they take all the money out of it, I don't know we win. And we talked about that on Saturday. I applaud Mr. Duran and the city staff, and I don't mean to sound ungrateful for this, but I think if Ms. Salcido came to this council and we saw a different picture as far as our expenditures, we would be pretty upset. And I think we have such great directors who are running our programs and our departments. I think they certainly realize that this council would not accept coming in here and being 72% of expenditures at this point in the year. But I think it's the team, Mr. Duran, that you've put together who understands that it's not just about running their departments, but it's keeping an eye on the budget. And I know you and Ms. Salcido make sure that happens. It's our expectations as a city council. I don't know, certainly in the last 4 or 5 years, that we've been surprised, other than what is done to us outside of your control. We're certainly not surprised by the quality of our team here at the city and how they respond. It's without directly relating to other agencies. It's funny how often we hear through the media about other governmental agencies who are astounded when their staff notify them that they're way over budget. That's something that doesn't go on in this place, because if we're short of revenues, then the city staff is on it immediately. It's not something you want to find out in July. It's a little late then. I concur with Ms. Sanders and Mr. Solomon that there's not a lot of extra bones in this budget, and while the reserves are small in their contrast, they do represent a pretty large percentage of our general fund budget for the year, and most cities are not in this type of situation. I think it does go to point the problems that we as a city and other cities are going to face going forward. There is not, can you go back to the revenue slide? There's our $22 million general fund revenues budgeted for 2011 fiscal year, which is down $4 million from a couple of years
No,
ago?
2.5.
No, from
a couple of years
high,
ago.
in 07.
Wasn't it 26 million?
Oh, 26, yes.
Okay, so we've lost, for a variety of reasons, both economic recession-wise, state stealing money, whatever, we've lost $4 million. That's 20% of our general fund budget. Do we really assume that it's going to start going up? Maybe we get a little bit more money in property tax over a couple of years. Maybe we get a little bit more as the sales tax comes. But as Ms. Salcido said, we're likely to lose in the triple flip. I mean, in the motor vehicle tax. We know we're going to lose if that fee increase is not maintained, we've got to struggle as a city. And for these residents, where we're going to fund services going forward. And I'm going to suggest to my colleagues, although it certainly isn't the time, we're going to have to look way outside about how we do things. Because the normal way of funding a city is not there anymore. And we're not going to get any assistance from the state, regardless of whether they take any more. They're certainly not going to give us any more. We can expect a very significant hit to the counties at the May revision. A very significant hit. Because the governor's proposed, and it is taboo, to take money away from K through 12 education. And so he's already taken a bunch of money, or proposed taking a bunch of money for higher education. The next hit is coming to the counties. And if we don't think that's going to impact how we as a city does business, we have some play over a lot of our general fund. The county's budget is tied up with all state programs for the most part. The state cuts those programs. There's no way to replace that money or do something different. So I think the impacts are going to be greater. I think the challenge as we get to March and April for the 2011-2012 budget is going to be even greater, and I think it's going to take not only new ideas from city staff, but this council as far as setting a strategic plan of how are we going to pay for police, fire, parks and recreation, essential services with declining revenues and increasing costs.
Good point.
Mayor, if I add a comment to opening statements that Ms. Salcido had, her biggest concerns are the state. There are the term realignment used in the governor's budget, and significant realignment outside of the RDA that this county has not had to see in a long time, and I don't know how many years it's been. It has to do with subventions, the repayment of booking fees at the jail that are not passed on to the city because this county has been able to work within those subventions. Most counties don't. Coming out of another state, booking fees are huge, $81 a day, first day, 40-some dollars. It gets very expensive. You have somebody in jail for a year, city's picking that up. So we have two issues that come to mind. One is the subventions, the loss of those services that are being paid for by the county now, being passed back to us for our actions. And the other one is CalPERS. CalPERS has recently redesignated its return, which means some of its losses aren't going to be recognized right away. The problem is in 2012, we're looking at approximately how much was an increase was?
Almost $400,000.
$400,000 increase to those costs that you see up on the board here that we haven't even seen. And that's with a low booking. That is not marking to its value. So the $400,000 is a very low number of what we're going to have increase on this without any staff, without any changes in salary. Everything that affects the CalPERS. Cut 20% out of the budget. And the reasons you have that, I think I wanted to go back. There was an item on here for 26%. I'm sorry. The year before, we were at 41%. Go back to the last slide. 41, we were at, one more back, for revenues, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yes.
Which way?
Oops, there we go.
That 38%?
And we were at 26% last year of a number. Well, the reason we're at 41% is because we lowered the base number. Our building permits used to be, what was our high number, 1.3 million? Mm-hmm. And we were hoping to get 300. Well, the power plant made that happen. Otherwise, we'd probably have $70,000, $80,000 in there. I mean, it was a $300,000 permit that was pulled. And we're doing all the inspections out there. That's where the money is. Sales tax is really flat. We're at pre-mall sales tax numbers still. People see, well, you had the mall out there. I had some city managers asking me about that. And I said, folks, the reason you see activity out there is because they have everything on sale. You just saw Gap is closing. But on the other side, the grading permit for Kohl's was pulled. They pulled the building permit, but they pulled the grading permit. That's a step forward. So hopefully we're balancing. But that's not moving up, but it seems like everybody else is moving down. So I guess I'll take that balanced approach. But we had some hard times. The governor is correct. He's talking about 5 more years before you get back to those 2007. I don't know that we'll ever see those 2007, but we maybe get back to better times in those 5 years. It's going to be a long haul.
Isn't PERS still anticipating over a 7% gain
I
on
was
its
just gonna
portfolio?
I was just gonna mention that, that 400,000 that our CalPERS, I'm estimating our CalPERS will increase for next year. That increase is the smallest of the next that we're gonna have on an annual basis.
That's the beginning.
So the percentage for the first year is the lowest one.
But Ms. Alzado, I think Ms. Walker's point is an important one. CalPERS, at least to my suspicion, is playing some real funny business with the rate of return they're expecting. And that's affecting the contribution rates, and which is what the point you were making.
Yes.
But we have enough experience, I think, collectively to know that those numbers are not going to be realized, which means at some point,
Right.
when they really recalibrate that rate of return, we're going to get hit again.
Right.
And so if we don't prepare for it, you just said you're getting what, 4 basis points on your money.
Yes.
The Federal Home Loan Bank is giving us a 1 basis point.
They're reducing their expectation from 7.75 to 7.50.
Oh, well.
I'm
But the
not
real rate
sure
of
what-
return right now
where they're gonna go for
is
that.
likely more around 4.5 or 5%. That's how we got the Superfund in part. And I'm concerned because that's going to, we need to prepare for that.
Yes.
I like your conservative approach and the staff's conservative approach to what you think that's going to cost us, because that's how we get blindsided. All of a sudden in 2013 we get hit. Well, you know what, we overestimated the rate of return, and so guess what? You're $1.5 million short, and make it up. We know that's going to happen because they've been overestimating that rate of return for a long time now.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. Thank you, Leticia, for an outstanding job
Yes,
to you and
thank
your
you.
staff. Next item on the agenda is the appointments. I'm going to ask the council to pull the item related to the appointment to the Planning Commission. There is another application that came in recently that did not make the agenda that I'd like to be able to review as well. So we're not, I'm not recommending an appointment to the Planning Commission tonight. I am recommending an appointment to our Community Services Commission. I'd like to ask the council to please appoint Bill Gay to our Community Services Commission. He's been waiting here patiently all afternoon and evening. Bill is someone that I've known for a long time, has been very involved in our community. I think that he's going to provide a great perspective and contribution to our Community Services Commission. So I'd like to make that appointment.
Move the
please.
mayor's appointment.
Moved by Mr. Edney, second by Ms. Walker. Please ballot.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you got it. No. There. There.
Thank you. Bill, did you want to say anything?
Council-
I know you're never shy for words.
Mutual interest, and also, I think, to get an idea of the kinds of things that their league is doing, in addition to holding quarterly meetings and whatnot. They're doing some really interesting thing on a day-to-day type monthly basis where they're meeting and strategizing together about some of the things we've been talking about. And I think it's a good opportunity for us to meet with them. And since they were kind enough to appear, I hope that we have a good turnout.
Thank you, Mr. Edney. Ms. Walker?
I'd like to thank Ms. Sanders and her husband for hosting the Martin Luther King breakfast on
You're very welcome.
Monday. That was wonderful. Thank council for their participation in the El Centro Regional Medical Center strategic planning session that we had last week. I think we were all probably a little tired when we got done with that meeting, looking at all of the projects that are moving forward. So appreciate your consideration and attendance. SCAG, I sit now, in addition to the regional council and the executive council and the energy and environment committee, I'm also on the ledge committee. And we had a meeting this morning, and we asked staff to also send a letter to the governor opposing the elimination of the RDA. In addition, I had forwarded analysis of the governor's budget, and I expect that the city clerk has forwarded to you. Two follow-up items to the minutes. There was discussion in our last minutes about forming a task force with regard to the city treasurer position. So at some point in time, we probably need to revisit that. and we were going to receive an update on the Pulte Home Park. So we'll make sure that we keep track of both of those items.
Thank you.
So-
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Mr. Solomon, any comments?
No, I just want to say, as Councilwoman Walker stated, that I really had a great time at Mrs. Sanders' house. I thought that was really appropriate and nice in the sense that it was a different environment. It was one of those where he had a chance to sit and talk to people. There wasn't a lot of speeches, so it was just good to get around and sit down and talk to people that you hadn't seen in a while. So I thought it was refreshing. I thought the ideal of it at your house, the way you had it set up was great. Even though I'm on a short diet, no, I heard nothing but good things about the food. So I just want to say I'm looking forward to you doing it next year. And
Whether you volunteered or not, right?
yeah, and I was thinking that if the city employees were complaining about extra funds, that they could just stop by your house on that day and don't have to worry about it and have a free meal. No, I'm only joking, But anyway, thank you very much for having that.
Thank you, Ms. Sanders. Ms. Sanders?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just want to thank everyone who did show up at my home at the designated time and fortunately left at the designated time. My husband and I and my family thoroughly enjoyed doing that. We thought it was a wonderful venue, and obviously we felt that as former Mayor Walker had said, it was supposed to be designed as a day of service. So that was our day of service to give back to the community to commemorate the legacy of Dr. King. I was so pleased to see all of you join us and certain staff members. We had Ms. Obeso come, and Mr. Hernandez was there. And then we had a host of members from my church and the community. Also, she's gone already, I'm sorry. Mrs. Deborah Harrell came by, and so we had a good representation from the city as well as the community. And those who did not get enough to eat, I hope you found your way over to Denny's to finish your breakfast. And if you did not, then stay tuned and come back next year. I was pleased with the coverage from the press. I was very happy that they showed up. They too seem to have enjoyed the fellowship and the opportunity. I also want to speak a little bit about the committee that we met. Mr. Silva and I met with the staff and Laurie Bowman as it relates to Dogwood. I think you all will be very pleased. That report will be forthcoming. But I had a call from her today, and she led me to believe that she was very pleased with the information that we provided her. She's going to take a hands-on approach to trying to get the issue resolved. She is going to be designating a specific individual for us to contact if we're not satisfied, and she's given that name. She said she would send that information to the city manager, and then we will all have it disseminated to us. And then when we meet again, Mr. Silva, I think that we will be able to come back to this council with the recommendations and suggestions that she offered. Mr. Duran, did you get any information from Ms. Bowman?
Not from Caltrans.
Not yet, okay. Well, she called me this morning, and she led me to believe it was going to be forthcoming. And one of the things that I thought about the overall tone of the meeting that we had, I thought it was very positive. I don't know if Mr. Hagan would like to speak to that in any way, the tone of the meeting that we had with her on that particular occasion with Caltrans. Oh,
Anything
okay.
to add?
You have anything to add to the?
Yeah.
Did you?
And I'll cover that.
Okay, you will?
Yeah.
Okay. The mayor will cover that, so thank you very much. And Mr. Mayor, then I pass the baton on to you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. I also want to echo the comments from the council and compliment you and congratulate you on the wonderful event yesterday. It was a lot of fun to be there, and as Mr. Solomon said, it was an opportunity to talk to people, and I appreciate that. Very well done. Look forward to that event next year.
Okay, next year it is.
It's been a busy month being the mayor of El Centro, but for the most part, it's been good. The meeting that Ms. Anderson and I had with Caltrans staff and our city staff, I think it was very productive. there's a summary that from the perception of staff, the accomplishment, and to me, the most significant issue that was discussed and agreed upon is to develop an appeal process for issues and disagreements that may occur between our staff and local staff, and not have to accept those decisions and be able to move that up the chain and try to come up with an appeal process so that projects don't get delayed. And staff was encouraged to use that appeal process when things cannot be worked out with their local Caltrans people. Caltrans indicated that the city may submit billings for work under the COOP, $270,000 prior to completion of projects, so that was also a positive concession that was made by Caltrans. And I think just better communication and having the right people at the table and through that appeal process, I think that's going to solve a lot of the issues that we've seen, and I think that was the perception from both Mr. Gay and Terry. I know all of you guys have all previous mayors have gotten an opportunity to visit with staff our local businesses, and I had my first business visitation in early January, and I have to say that was very enlightening. That was such a wonderful experience to go out and talk to our business people and really get a sense of where we are and how they feel. That was a wonderful experience that I look forward to continue to do that. Number of open houses, the business expo, just a lot of stuff that
It's exhausting.
it is tiring being a mayor, I have to say. I didn't realize that. But it was fun. Want to invite you. I hope that you guys can join the chamber and myself this Thursday at 7:30 in the morning for the State of the City address. I want to thank staff for all the work that they've done to help me prepare for this. I know that they're going to make me look good, and they're going to be responsible for that, not me. That's really all I have to report. Did I miss anything from the council's perspective?
Do we need to RSVP for the breakfast because the chamber said in their notification to RSVP?
I think you do.
So
Yes. Do you want me to do that?
Yes,
yeah.
For what?
for all of them.
For the breakfast?
I'm sure.
I would imagine since the mayor of the city is the keynote speaker that they would assume that all the council would be.
And you're in your building.
They would have a muffin for us, at least get some juice.
I wouldn't go that far. These are hard times, remember.
I'll bring my own.
Is it $5?
Well, that's only for non-members. We're members of the
okay.
chamber.
Bring my
You don't
own
need to bring
coffee.
$5.
Yeah, I think I'm sure we'll find a chair for all of you guys.
Did they really say RSVP?
I don't know.
I'll call tomorrow.
7:30.
7:30.
10:30. Okay, so that concludes the city council meeting.